For this video, I will be talking about EarthBound, a quirky RPG from Nintendo, HAL Laboratory, and a company called Ape. EarthBound is an RPG which takes place in a real-world-like setting as opposed to fantasy settings common among RPGs, and in which psychic powers are used instead of magic powers. The game is the second entry in a trilogy of Japanese RPGs called Mother, and the game's Japanese title is Mother 2 Geek no Gyakushu, which translates to Mother 2 Geek Strikes Back. The Mother series is a parody of the iconic Dragon Quest RPG series and of the RPG genre in general. EarthBound did not make much impact in North America initially, but it eventually gained a cult following in North America, as shown by its massive fan sites like Earthbound Central and Starman.net, both of which are well worth checking out. The premise of EarthBound is that in Onnet, a town in England, which is an homage to America, a meteorite lands near the house of Ness, the game's main protagonist. Not long afterward, Ness goes to the meteorite and a flying bug named Buzz emerges from the meteorite. Buzz comes from the future and tells Ness that someone named Gigas will destroy the world unless Ness stops him. Buzz tells Ness of a prophecy that 3 boys and a girl will stop Gigas. Buzz also tells Ness that his power must unite with the Earth's, and for this to happen, Ness must visit 8 power spots called Your Sanctuary and record the melodies from these spots using what is called a soundstone. Ness is eventually joined by a girl named Paula who has strong psychic powers, an intelligent boy skilled at building and repairing machines named Jeff, and a martial artist boy named Pooh. In this journey, Ness has to face opposition from Gigas' minions, as well as people and animals whose minds are influenced by Gigas. I will now talk about the story. The story is a great mix of goofy, surreal, and emotional. The story includes a lot of funny and/or witty dialogue, like "Don't go to heaven," which is spoken by an enemy at one point, and the cameraman's line, "Save Fuzzy Pickles." The wacky and surreal areas in the real-world setting add greatly to the game's humorous side, and are great parodies of the fantastical and magical settings in the more common fantastical RPGs and of various RPG tropes. In addition, the funny and wacky bosses are great parodies of the magical and imaginative bosses in RPGs and of various RPG boss tropes. The use of real-world or realistic items such as baseball bats as weapons, equipment, recovery items, and battle items is a great humorous take on RPG items and goes well with the game's quirky real-world atmosphere. The game's psychic powers are a great take on magic spells and fit better in the real-world setting than magic would. The story not only uses humor well, but also employs several emotions very well and has clear, well-written, and thought-provoking dialogue. The story also has likable characters. The 4 playable characters are each likable in their own ways and are each important to the story in their own way. Other likable characters include Ness's mother, Ness's younger sister Tracy, a thief named Everdread, the Runaway 5, Jeff's father Dr. Ananuts, and the Mr. Saturns, who I would like to say are cute because of their humorous dialogue font, their dialogue, and their design. I will now talk about the gameplay. The combat is fun and engaging thanks to the deep combat system and to the HP system. The battles progress in rounds in which the player characters and enemies perform their respective actions uninterrupted and in an order depending on speed. Before each round, the player chooses the actions for each player character to perform in the round. The ordering gives the combat depth and strategy, the action selection phase gives strategy, and the large amount of possible actions each character can perform give depth and strategy. How the HP system works is that each player character's HP counter functions like an odometer. Instead of the change in HP being instantaneous each time damage is taken or health is recovered, the counter rolls up or down whenever the HP changes. A great convenience of this is that if a player character takes mortal damage or damage exceeding their current HP, they don't instantly die and instead remain conscious as long as their counter does not reach 0. This gives the player time to either recover the dying character's health or finish the battle. On a related note, if a battle ends before a dying character's HP counter reaches 0, the character remains conscious, another great convenience. As a result, the HP counter system gives the battles a large amount of depth and strategy and reduced potential frustration caused by mortal damage. The battles are made even better by the excellent in-battle enemy sprites, the well-animated and surreal psychic attacks, the trippy backgrounds, and the excellent battle songs. The enemy sprites are colorful and their cartoony art style goes well in a comical atmosphere, and the effect of an enemy fading away upon defeat is very satisfying. The psychic attack animations go well with the surreal part of the game's atmosphere and are just fun to watch in general. The trippy backgrounds are fun to look at, are well animated, and go well with the goofy side and surreal side of the game. Another thing I love about the game is the critical hits or smash attacks. The sound and text that occur when a party member uses a smash attack are very satisfying, as is the increased damage. I especially like the boss battles because of the boss sprites and because of the boss's powerful attacks. The gameplay outside of battle is fun too. Solving puzzles with items is fun, obtaining treasure from presents, garbage cans, and other real-world containers is fun, and interacting with NPCs is fun. The gameplay outside of battle is made more fun with the simplistic charm of the sprites and environments outside of battle. The Dragon Quest-like art style outside of battle adds an 80s or early 90s RPG charm to the game and goes well with the funny and surreal side of the atmosphere. There are only two problems I have with the gameplay. Firstly, I don't like the inventory system because battle items, important items, and equipment, both equipped and unequipped, are stored in the same place, making it easy for a single character's backpack or all backpacks together to fill up, hindering item management. The second thing I don't like is that after a game over, the party respawns with Ness alive but with no psychic points and with the rest of the party dead. Reviving and recovering the party after a game over can be expensive or tedious. Fortunately, the good things about the gameplay far outweigh the bad things. One of my favorite things about the game is the deep, emotional, greatly varied, and fitting soundtrack. The environment songs add the right emotions and fit the settings, the battle songs add the right amount of intensity to their respective battles, and the cutscene songs add the right emotions. My favorite environmental songs include On It, Tucson, Saturn Valley, Foresight, and The Lost Underworld. My favorite battle songs include the Sanctuary Guardian song, the New Age Retro Hippies song, Battle Against a Mobile Opponent, and Battle Against an Unsettling Opponent. I also love the opening and title songs, and the songs performed by the Runaway Five and by a female singer named Venus. The rest of my review gives away several major plot points. One of my favorite scenarios in the game is near the end of the game, the Magician scenario. The scenario happens after the player records all of the melodies from the Your Sanctuary locations. Ness falls unconscious and ends up in Magicant, a world made from his dreams and memories. Magicant itself is colorful, surreal, and well drawn. Characters from past scenarios returning as NPCs in Magicant is a great touch. Ness's younger selves appearing as NPCs is another great touch, and the dialogue of the NPCs is emotional. In addition, Magicant as a whole shows a side of Ness not previously made clear due to him being a silent protagonist. The Magicant scenario ends with a great battle against Ness's nightmare, the evil part of Ness's mind. The battle is great because of Ness's nightmare's attacks and the excellent battle song. After the battle, the Magicant scenario ends in a satisfying way with Ness's nightmare vanishing, Ness's subconscious talking to Ness, Ness receiving massive stat boosts from the 8 Your Sanctuary locations, and Ness waking up outside of Magicant and with his friends surrounding him. I will now talk about the final scenario. The party finds out that they have to travel back in time to defeat Gigas. Without going into all the details, the party has their souls placed into robotic bodies because their real bodies cannot survive time travel, and they travel to the past using a machine called the Phase Distorter. The area the party ends up in is bleak and depressing, and as a result is a great setup for the final battle. The Phase Distorter can be used to save the game and to fully restore the party for free, reducing frustration and restoring the party. The room the final battle takes place in is a great setup due to the unsettling intestine-like appearance of the floor, the disturbing wind-like sounds, and the machine at the very back. This machine is called the Devil's Machine and it contains Gigas. When the party gets close enough to the machine, unsettling music starts playing and an image of Ness's head appears on the machine, making the situation more unsettling. Ness's rude and arrogant next-door neighbor and a frequent hindrance to Ness, a boy named Pokey Minch, then appears piloting a spider-like mechanical construct. Pokey reveals to Ness's party that he is Gigas' servant, and after Pokey finishes talking, the final battle, which is my favorite battle in the game, begins. The final battle is my favorite battle because of the music, the variety of the multiple phases, the dark and emotional nature of the battle, and the visuals. The first phase has my favorite song in the game, Pokey Means Business. I love how the song starts off as an 8-bit song reminiscent of dungeon songs in 80s RPGs, then turns into an intense fighting song which fits the first phase very well. The first phase is also great because of the unsettling look of the Devil's Machine and the attacks by Gigas and Pokey. After the first phase, the battle gets darker and more unsettling when Pokey turns off the Devil's Machine and unleashes Gigas. In the second phase, Gigas looks more intimidating and unsettling than before, and his attacks are more intimidating due to their random nature and Gigas' disturbing dialogue. The second phase's song also adds to the unsettling atmosphere of the battle. The last two phases are easily darker and more unsettling, especially the fourth and final phase. I love the emotional and reassuring dialogue that occurs in the final two phases. I won't give anything away about this dialogue though. The battle ends in a satisfying way with Pokey fleeing and with Gigas becoming unstable and turning into what looks like TV static, then disappearing in a way similar to a CRT television turning off. I will now talk about the ending. The souls of Ness and friends returning to the present is heartwarming, and great emotional music plays during the sequence. The player being able to revisit any place they want after regaining control of Ness is a great touch, and so is the triumphant and soothing remix of the Foresight theme playing during this open-ended sequence. When the player is done with this segment, the player is treated to a great cast of characters segment, which is a great retrospective of the journey and has great musical callbacks to the journey. The credit sequence that immediately follows is great because of the excellent song, which is an excellent remix of the complete 8 Melodies song, and the pictures taken during the game by the cameraman I mentioned earlier. The song remix and the picture montage greatly replicate the feeling of nostalgia from looking through a photo album and going down memory lane. The game then follows up with a great player-controlled segment, which ends with Pokey's younger brother Picky giving Ness a letter from Pokey, a letter which gives Ness one final taunt from Pokey. Picky then wonders where Pokey is, and the game ends with "The End" and a question mark. The scene is a great callback to the game's first scenario and adds to the mystery of Pokey in a good way. Overall, EarthBound remains a masterpiece among RPGs and a great parody of RPGs, with its quirky yet emotional story, likable characters, deep combat system, great art style, and excellent soundtrack. That concludes my review of EarthBound. Take care.